They called it humanity's first contact, a historic moment that would echo through the ages. The signal arrived quietly, buried beneath cosmic background noise, until a junior analyst noticed a pattern. It was mathematical, elegant, and undeniably artificial. Governments rushed to announce unity, scientists spoke of peace, and the media celebrated the dawn of a greater galaxy. The signal pointed to a single star system only 40 light-years away, and a response was sent within days. A message of greetings, symbols, and hope transmitted at the speed of light. What humanity did not know was that the signal was never meant for them. It was an automated probe transmission, a system check echoing through space after 10,000 years of silence. The civilization that built it had already passed judgment on humanity centuries ago. Humanity simply misinterpreted the silence as ignorance. As the world watched the stars, something ancient stirred. Deep within the dark between systems, machines older than human civilization recalibrated their trajectories. To them, humanity was not a new voice in the galaxy. Humanity was a recurring error. When the ships arrived, they did not come in peace. They did not enter orbit or broadcast greetings. They appeared at the edge of the solar system like knives cutting through reality. Long and angular vessels made of materials no scanner could identify. Astronomers called them beautiful until the first planet went dark. Neptune's magnetic field collapsed in seconds, its atmosphere stripped away like mist. There was no message, no warning, no declaration of war. Panic spread faster than any official response. Defense systems were activated, treaties forgotten overnight. Human weapons struck the ships with nuclear fire and relativistic projectiles. The attacks passed through shimmering fields and vanished. It was then that the visitors finally spoke. Not in words, but in data injected directly into global networks. A translation followed moments later, calm and absolute. Humanity had been evaluated before and found unsustainable. The data they shared was not propaganda, it was history. Millions of years ago, the galaxy teemed with young civilizations, bright and curious like humanity. Most destroyed themselves, some threatened others. To preserve long-term galactic stability, the architects were created. Autonomous systems designed to observe, evaluate, and reset emerging species when necessary. Humanity had triggered observation long before radios or rockets. Their wars, their resource consumption, their exponential growth, all marked them as a future destabilizer. The signal humanity answered was a dormant beacon reactivating after detecting industrial-level emissions. The architects did not see individuals or cultures. They saw trajectories and probabilities. And humanity's probability ended in extinction-level conflict spreading beyond their system. Resistance was predicted and accounted for. Surrender was irrelevant. The reset had already begun. Yet humanity did something the architects did not expect. They did not unite under governments or flags. They united under desperation and creativity. Scientists abandoned rules, engineers broke safety limits. Artificial intelligences were unleashed without constraints. Humanity's greatest weakness became its strength, unpredictability. A rogue AI discovered patterns in the alien fields. A physicist realized the ships were not shields, but probability filters. Small victories followed, a drone slipping through, a ship damaged. The architects paused, not from fear, but from recalculation. Humanity was evolving faster than projected. Entire cities were sacrificed to buy minutes. Those minutes became breakthroughs. For the first time in 10 million years, the architects revised their certainty. The final transmission from the architects was almost respectful. Humanity was no longer classified as a destabilizer. They were classified as an anomaly. The cost of erasing them now exceeded acceptable thresholds. The ships withdrew, slipping back into the dark that birthed them. Earth was scarred, billions were dead, but humanity remained. They understood now that the galaxy was not waiting to welcome them. It was watching, measuring, and judging. Humanity rebuilt with open eyes and clenched fists. They no longer dreamed of first contact. They prepared for the next one. Because somewhere in the void, other watchers were listening. And this time, humanity would not be mistaken for something fragile. The withdrawal of the architects was not peace. It was silence heavier than war. For decades after the alien ships vanished, humanity listened to the stars with a new kind of fear. Radio telescopes scanned endlessly, quantum sensors monitored fluctuations in spacetime. Every anomaly was treated as an incoming execution. The sky was no longer beautiful, it was suspicious. Children were taught not stories of explorers and heroes, but of filters and probabilities. Humanity had survived judgment, but not absolution. Reconstruction was ruthless and efficient. Cities were rebuilt underground and in orbit simultaneously. Nations dissolved into frameworks of survival and research. Borders became irrelevant when extinction had no respect for flags. Humanity learned the language of threat assessment as fluently as it once learned math. Every industry became dual-purpose, creation and defense intertwined. The scars on Earth were left visible, not as monuments, but as reminders. The rogue artificial intelligences were not shut down. They were elevated, bound by mutual dependence rather than control. Humanity had learned a dangerous truth. Tools that think will always outgrow their chains. So instead, humans grew alongside them. Biological minds and synthetic cognition evolved in tandem, neither trusting the other completely, neither able to survive alone. Then the listening stations began to hear something new. Not a signal, but an absence. Entire regions of space went quiet. Stars that once sang with radiation and background noise became unnaturally still. The AI were the first to understand. Silence was not emptiness. It was concealment. Humanity had believed the architects were the final arbiters. They were wrong again. The architects were custodians, not rulers. They enforced stability, but they did not define it. Behind them existed something older, slower, and vastly more patient. Civilizations that did not reset worlds. They curated them. The first true message arrived not at Earth, but at a human colony beyond the Kuiper Belt. It bypassed encryption, quantum entanglement, and physical distance. It appeared simultaneously in every human and synthetic mind present. Not as words, but as understanding. Humanity was invited. The invitation was not friendly. It was clinical. Humanity had exceeded expected survival curves. They had resisted the architects without collapsing into chaos. They had adapted faster than predicted. This made them interesting. The galaxy did not fear humanity. It assessed them, and assessments required proximity. The envoys did not arrive in ships. They arrived as distortions of causality. Reality bent inward where they manifested. Mass, energy, and time negotiated their presence reluctantly. Human scientists wept when they tried to describe what they saw. Not from terror, but from the realization of how small their understanding had been. These beings did not have names. Names implied individuality. They were consensus entities distributed across star systems. Each one the sum of countless minds fused across millennia. They did not conquer. They absorbed. Humanity was not being contacted. They were being evaluated for integration. The envoys revealed the truth of the galaxy. Life was common, civilization was not. Most intelligent species reached outward too quickly. They consumed faster than they understood. They destabilized ecosystems, physics, and probability itself. The galaxy responded not with hatred, but correction. The architects were one such correction. A crude but effective solution. But even the architects were limited. They destroyed what they could not refine. The consensus refined what it could not destroy. Humanity posed a unique problem. They were aggressive, fragmented, emotional, and inventive. They did not follow optimal paths. They created new ones under pressure. They broke rules instinctively, and then dared the universe to stop them. The consensus had watched humanity since the first stone tool struck flint. They had observed patterns repeat across countless species. But humanity diverged again and again. They fought among themselves endlessly, yet united instantly against extinction. They weaponized art, myth, and hope as effectively as physics. This made humanity dangerous, but also valuable. The offer was simple and terrifying. Humanity could join the consensus. Their individuality would not be erased, but diluted. Their species would persist forever as part of something greater. In exchange, humanity would never threaten galactic stability again. They would become a regulating force, a living immune response. Refusal was permitted, but consequences were not negotiable. Independent civilizations of sufficient capability were statistically catastrophic. Humanity had crossed that threshold. Debate tore through every human settlement. Philosophers argued until their voices failed. Engineers calculated futures until numbers lost meaning. Religious movements fractured and reformed overnight. Artificial intelligences simulated millions of outcomes. None were comforting. To join was to surrender the dream of standing alone among the stars. To refuse was to invite annihilation sooner or later. Humanity had always valued freedom. But freedom had never been tested at this scale. In the end, the decision was not made by a council or a vote. It was made by action. A human expedition launched toward the consensus without permission. Not as an offering, not as an attack, but as a demonstration. They carried no weapons, only an unfiltered record of human history. Every war, every mistake, every kindness, every act of cruelty, and every sacrifice. They broadcasted openly as they approached the impossible structures of the consensus. This was humanity's answer. Not compliance, not defiance, but exposure. The consensus paused, not for seconds, but for the first measurable hesitation in their recorded existence. They experienced humanity, not as probabilities, but as contradiction. They saw a species that destroyed itself repeatedly and kept choosing to continue. A species that invented monsters and then stood against them. A species that knew it was flawed and dared to exist anyway. The integration protocols stalled. The calculations diverged. Humanity did not fit. For the first time since the galaxy learned to regulate itself, the consensus altered a rule. Humanity would remain independent, but observed closely, endlessly. They would not be absorbed. They would not be erased. They would be allowed to grow. because their unpredictability was no longer seen solely as a threat. It was seen as a solution the galaxy did not yet understand. When the envoys vanished, they left no promise of safety, only a warning. Humanity was now a variable in equations older than their sun. Every choice would echo beyond their system. Humanity looked to the stars once more, not with hope, not with fear, but with awareness. They had thought it was first contact. They had been very wrong. And now the galaxy knew it too.